Do it the waltz, everyone. This is really a fairly short talk, but one that is on a topic I haven't heard much addressed in the order. I want to start it off with a quote from One Star in Sight, in which Crowley writes that the attainment of the knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel is the essential work of every man. None other ranks with it, either for personal progress or for power to help one's fellows. This unachieved, man is but no more than the unhappiest and blindest of animals. He is conscious of his own calamity and clumsily incapable of repairing it. Achieved, he is no less than the co-heir of gods, a lord of light. He is conscious of his own consecrated course and confidently ready to run it. The matter of this accomplishment is a theme running throughout the entire corpus of Crowley's writings. From the opening allegory of the wake world in his first published work on magic, Conques and Pax, all the way through the last letters of Magic Without Tears. In the latter, he affirms, quote, "It should never be forgotten for a moment that the central and essential work of the magicians is the attainment of the knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel." Nor should we presume that this attainment is peculiar to the system of AA or even to Thelema. In the early journals of 666, he emphasizes the identity of various occult and religious traditions in this key feature. He includes Theosophy, the Golden Dawn, the Rosicrucian fiction of Bulwer Lytton, Buddhism, the Bhagavad Gita, the I Ching, the Hebrew Kabbalah, and ancient Zoroastrianism, each having their own terminology to indicate the Holy Guardian Angel. Thelema may be exceptional only in its injunction to all aspirants that this particular attainment can and should be pursued. In his diary of February 1905, the priest and apostle of infinite space had come to the realization that his central mission would be to, quote, "teach the knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel," unquote. Our practice in this regard I would characterize as post-theological, a character evident not only from Crowley's radically syncretistic approach, but from his preference for the quote-unquote patently absurd label, Holy Guardian Angel, quote, so as to mortify the metaphysical man. Now, given that the Gnostic Catholic Church, our Ecclesia Gnostica Catholica, or E.G.C., is the public congregational rite of the Holy Order to which this same teacher entrusted the global promulgation of his message, it may therefore come as something of a surprise to discover that nowhere throughout the official rituals or canonical regulations of our church can we find this phrase, Holy Guardian Angel, as such. Still, since our church is founded in a pre-existing tradition, it would not be surprising to find the Holy Guardian Angel instead appearing or alluded to under one of its many other names or titles, such as Adonai, Yehida, Adi Buddha, Vishnu, Agoides, Daimon, Logos, Great Person, Imam of one's own being, True Self, Perfect Nature, Silent Watcher, or Personal Genius. This last term, genius, is the one that Crowley ascribed to common usage in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, but it is also significant in being a recurrent term for the concept among Western philosophers from antiquity through the Enlightenment. Early literary examples occur in the works of Plautus in the 3rd century BCE, where we find striking correlations between the concepts of hospitality and geniality. The latter, geniality, understood as rapport with one's genius. To exercise one's vitality and fulfill one's life is to indulge the personal genius, while to submit to repression and failure is to defraud or cheat the genius. During the European Renaissance, the Platonist Franciscan Francesco Giorgi wrote in a treatise De Harmonia Mundi Totius, the year 1525, about the essential congruity between one's astrological nativity and the guidance of one's genius. Moving forward to the 18th century, Giacomo Casanova, Chevalier de Saint-Galt, wrote about encountering his genius in a garden where it took the form of a serpent, just as it typically had for the ancients. Writing of his first hardships as a prisoner, Casanova reflected, "My genius diverted himself in this fashion in order to give me the pleasure of making comparisons." In an early manifesto for Crowley's cultural and magical agenda, he allied himself explicitly with the Neoplatonism of pagan antiquity in an overt attempt to champion a deep European tradition in opposition to what he saw as the degeneracy of modern Christianity. And perhaps the greatest surviving exposition of the doctrine of the genius from such sources is De Deo Socrates by Apuleius on the God of Socrates, where we read, "The daimon who presides over you inquisitively participates of all that concerns you, sees all things, understands all things, and in the place of conscience dwells in the most profound recesses of the mind. For he of whom I speak is a perfect guardian, a singular prefect, a domestic speculator, a proper curator, an intimate inspector, an assiduous observer, an inseparable arbiter, a reprobator of what is evil, an approver of what is good, and, if he is legitimately attended to, sedulously known, and religiously worshipped. In the way he was reverenced by Socrates, with justice and innocence, will be a predictor in things uncertain, a premonitor in things dubious, a defender in things dangerous, and an assistant in want. He will also, manifestly, when the occasion demands it, to avert you from evil, increase your good, raise your depressed, support your failing, illuminate your obscure, govern your prosperous, and correct your adverse circumstances." How, may the modern reader of Apuleius ask, is the genius to be, quote-unquote, religiously worshipped after the manner of the ancients? In the Roman world of the beginning of the vulgar era, a living man would customarily celebrate and propitiate his individual genius, or her Juno, if a woman, on the anniversary of the individual's birth. These rites were performed in a white robe at a domestic altar. Fires were lit and incense burned. The sacrifice to the genius consisted of honey cakes and wine, and it is not at all unlikely that this feast for life contributed to the origins of the Christian Eucharist. The ancient custom survived to Apuleius' time and beyond. In the year 392, the Christianized Law of Rome forbade sacrificing wine to one's genius, and the penalty was death. Now, consider our Gnostic Mass. As in a Christian Eucharist, the priest speaks words of institution. This is my body, and this is my blood. But who is the me and the mine of these statements? In the Christian context, the elements are embedded in a narrative that clearly identifies them as the body and blood of Jesus. Do we eat the body and blood of Jesus? Do we eat the sacrificial flesh of Aleister Crowley? Hardly. After the priest has consecrated the elements by identifying them as flesh and blood, he addresses the office of the anthem to "Thou who art I," beyond all I am, his personal genius or holy guardian angel. And each congregant gets her own cake, his own goblet of wine. They are not communicating with the priest's genius, but with their own. And indeed, a reading of the Gnostic Gospel of Philip provides a Valentinian theory of the Eucharist, according to which the Eucharist anticipates the union of the Gnostic with his angel image. It effects a realization of the original oneness of the divine fullness. The Master Therion wrote that a magician partaking of the Eucharist becomes filled with God, fed upon God, intoxicated with God. Matter is replaced by spirit, the human by the divine. Ultimately, the change will be complete. God, manifest in flesh, will be his name. This is the most important of all magical secrets that ever were or are or can be. To a magician thus renewed, the attainment of the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel becomes an inevitable task. Every force of his nature, unhindered, tends toward the aim and goal of whose nature neither man nor God may speak, for that it is infinitely beyond speech, or thought, or ecstasy, or silence. Thus, in magic and theory and practice. In our ceremony of baptism for the Gnostic Catholic Church, the candidate may declare, "I will rejoice in the will of my God," with that God perhaps understood as the holy guardian angel, and certainly implied to be the God of that individual. But this emphasis seems to fade at confirmation, with its focus on Ra Horkuit, the Lord of the Aeon, and yet these are not so far apart as they might seem. In his commentaries on the Book of the Law, Crowley remarks that, quote, "the crowned and conquering child refers both to Ra Horkuit as Cosmocrator, or Lord of the Aeon, and to the true conqueror hidden in ourselves, the silent watcher or guardian angel, who is our own personal God." Moreover, we find in ancient theories regarding the genius the idea that our common humanity is reflected in a Lord of Diamonds, who, from the first, defined to everyone his peculiar diamond, according to his own proper will. And who should such a Lord of Diamonds be but the governor of the Aeon and Lord of Initiation? Iamblichus makes this point, going on to aver that, quote, "when the peculiar diamond is present with each of us, he then unfolds the worship which is proper to be paid to him and his name, and likewise delivers the proper mode of invoking him." Hopefully, the present discussion clarifies ways in which the Thelemic concept of the Holy Guardian Angel underlies the magic of our Mass, and even how it informs our ceremonies of affiliation in baptism and confirmation. But these ecclesiastical practices were not the ones to which the prophet addressed himself when prescribing a proper method of invoking knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel. Indeed, another of his reasons for preferring this term for the practice is to refer to the method of the book of the sacred magic of Abramelin the Mage, which Crowley calls, quote, "so simple and effective," unquote. With reference to this method, the most explicit and detailed instruction for Thelemites is that of Liber Psalmic, a revised and explicated version of the ritual that the beast himself used in uniting himself to his genius. This ritual was grounded in a text that Crowley called the preliminary invocation of the Goetia, although it was in fact a magical incantation from antiquity only circumstantially associated with the Goetia grimoire through the editorial activity of Golden Dawn chief MacGregor Mathers. Of the dozens of barbarous names of evocation comprehended by this ritual, Crowley signals out one for very special treatment in Liber Psalmic, one that, quote, in its most secret and mighty sense, declareth the formula of the magic of the beast, whereby he wrought many wonders, unquote. And in Liber Psalmic he treats it thus: let I and O face all, yet ward their A from attack. The hermit to himself, the fool to foes, the devil to friends. 9 by nature, naught by attainment, 15 by function. In speech, swift, subtle, and secret. In thought, creative, unbiased, unbounded. In act, gentle, patient, and persistent. Hermes to hear, Dionysus to touch, Pan to behold. A virgin, a babe, and a beast. A liar, an idiot, and a master of men. A kiss, a guffaw, and a bellow. He that hath ears to hear, let him hear. This name, E.G.C, which is the mainspring of Liber Psalmic, is none other than the name most crucially invoked in the Gnostic Mass. The deacon calls on it to open the temple. The priest calls on it to part the veil. And the consecrated elements are exhibited together as the priest cries out, Holy, 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 E.G.C. And that Dionysus, at the core of the formula, the fool A, is himself a figure of the holy guardian angel, in an allegory elaborated at length in Crowley's notes for an astral atlas, where he writes, Bacchus, twee-formed, man-woman, Bacchus, whose innocence tames the tiger, while yet thy horns drip blood upon thy mouth, and sharpen the merriment of wine to the madness of murder. Crowley was not the only occultist to make this identification. The theosophist James Morgan Price proposed similarly in the commentary to his translation of Euripides' Bacchae that the figure of Dionysus was, quote, the spiritual mind, the true self, represented as the sun god. According to the ritual of Liber Psalmic, the angel is also identified with the devil's Bez and Apophras, whose, quote, combined action is to allow the god upon whom they prey to enter into enjoyment of existence through the sacrament of individual life. Bread, the flesh of Bez, and love, wine, the blood or venom of Apophras. In other words, the elements of the Eucharist can be construed as the faculties, the Chia and Neshama, if you will, by which the Ruach, or consciousness, is extruded from the Yehida, or the supreme identity. Their demiurgic power corresponds to the ancient belief that the genius was responsible for uniting the soul to the body. Long before the composition of Liber Psalmic in Cefalù, the prophet had already received and codified a Thelemic revision of the general method of Abramelin. That text, canonized for AA as Liber 8, was originally formulated within his exploration of the eighth ether, Zid, of the Enochian system, as documented in the Vision and the Voice. Within this magical episode in the North African desert, an angel declared unto Crowley, and this shall he do, who will attain unto the mystery of the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel. What follows reduces the hundreds of pages of Abramelin instructions to just 4 or 5 pages of text, complete with new references to the symbol system of the Book of the Law. After this instruction, the speaking angel, whom Crowley understood to be his own holy guardian angel, identified himself as I was, the dictating intelligence of the Book of the Law. And then, I was submitted Crowley to some corrections as follows. Thus hast thou erred indeed, perceiving me in the path that leadeth from the crown unto the beauty. For that path bridgeth the abyss, And I am of the supernals. Nor I, nor thou, nor he can bridge the abyss. It is the priestess of the silver star, and the prophet of the gods, and the Lord of the hosts of the mighty. For they are the servants of Babylon, and of the beast, and of those others of whom it is not yet spoken. And being servants, they have no name. But we are of the blood royal, and serve not. And therefore are we less than they. Crowley had previously assigned the holy guardian angel to the path of Gimel, uniting Keter and Tiferet, Kabbalistically. Aiwass insists that the personal genius is a native of the supernals. No single entity can bridge the division of the veil of the abyss, but there are three roles that do. Joining the angel's awareness with the magician's experience of knowledge and conversation in Tiferet. And these three are indicated as those paths leading upwards to the supernals from the center of the tree. They are figured by a set of tarot trumps, which correspond to the principal officers of the Gnostic Mass. Gimel is the priestess of the silver star. Zain is the prophet of the gods, the lover's card showing the deacon Mercury. And He is the lord of the hosts of the mighty, the emperor card with its red-robed priest. In medieval literature, the personal genius typically is figured as a priest who marries the soul to the body and who excommunicates practitioners of unnatural vice. But the passage from the vision and the voice suggests that, depending on the situation or disposition of the aspirant, any of the three principal officers of the Gnostic Mass can shadow forth the powers of the holy guardian angel. For they are the servants of Babylon and of the beast, and of those others of whom it is not yet spoken. And being servants, they have no name. So that when the clergy of our church perform the genuine magic of sacramental service, we do so in a nameless, transpersonal fashion. The work is not a matter of expressing our individuality or of achieving personal distinction. It is instead an offering of ourselves as instruments by which Babylon and the beast can call others forth toward knowledge and conversation. And it is this work that makes us into ministers of the Law of Thelema, and which assists each aspirant toward his or her own true will, the summum bonum